If you're watching this right now, chances are you're not doing it for fun. You're here because prices keep climbing, your grocery bill feels heavier every month, rent or property taxes don't stop rising, and every time you check your bank balance, you ask the same question millions of Americans are asking. How much longer can I hold on like this? This isn't just another video. This is about your life, your family, and your wallet. And today, two powerful numbers are colliding in headlines, online discussions, and political conversations across the country: a $1 to $200 increase and a $2,000 stimulus check. The question shaking Social Security recipients, SSDI beneficiaries, SSI households, and retirees everywhere is simple, but massive. Can you actually get both at the same time? For seniors, people with disabilities, and families surviving on fixed income, this question isn't theoretical. It's personal. It's the difference between breathing room and panic. It's medication without cutting meals. It's keeping the lights on without fear. It's whether your check stretches to the end of the month or runs out halfway through. And what makes this moment even more intense is the timing. Inflation has cooled on paper, but Americans know the truth. Prices didn't come back down. They stayed high. Your Social Security cost of living adjustment helped, but not enough. SSDI and SSI payments helped, but didn't catch up. And stimulus checks? Those feel like a distant memory, until now. Because suddenly, the conversation is back. Lawmakers are talking, policy groups are pushing, economic pressure is rising, and whispers of both a $1,200 increase and a $2,000 stimulus-style payment are colliding in the same breath. So don't blink, don't click away, because by the end of this video, you'll understand what's real, what's possible, what's being debated, and most importantly, what this could mean for you and your family moving forward. Why these numbers are everywhere right now. Let's slow this down and break it apart, because confusion is everywhere, and clarity matters when your money is on the line. First, the $1,200 increase. This number is not random. It's being used in conversations around annual benefit adjustments, expanded supplemental benefits, and proposals aimed at correcting years of purchasing power loss for Social Security, SSDI, and SSI recipients. Some discussions frame it as a yearly increase. Others talk about it as a cumulative boost spread across months. But the reason it's catching fire is simple. People are hurting, and current benefits aren't keeping up. Now let's talk about the $2,000 stimulus check. That number hits hard because Americans remember it. When stimulus payments went out before, they weren't perfect, but they were immediate relief. They helped people catch up, breathe, and survive. And now, as economic pressure builds again, calls for targeted stimulus, especially for seniors and people with disabilities, are growing louder. Here's where it gets intense. These two ideas are being discussed at the same time, in overlapping policy conversations. Not as guarantees, not as official law, but as responses to the same problem. Millions of Americans cannot keep up with the cost of living on fixed income alone. That's why headlines feel explosive. That's why social media feels chaotic. That's why rumors spread fast. And that's why people are asking the big question. If both are being discussed, could both happen? The truth is, the system doesn't usually move fast, but pressure changes things. Elections change things. Public attention changes things. And right now, attention is locked on affordability, survival, and economic dignity. So no, nothing is automatically approved. No, checks aren't guaranteed tomorrow. But the conversation itself is meaningful because it signals that lawmakers know something isn't working, and voters are watching. And when pressure meets politics, change becomes possible. What Social Security, SSDI, and SSI recipients need to know. Now let's talk directly to you. If you receive Social Security, SSDI, or SSI, these programs are not the same, but they are connected by one shared reality. They support people who cannot simply earn more to survive. Seniors can't rewind time. People with disabilities can't just pick up extra shifts. SSI recipients already live close to the edge. That's why any talk of increases or stimulus matters more here than anywhere else. A $1,200 increase, depending on how it's structured, could mean higher monthly payments, adjusted benefit formulas, or supplemental additions aimed at offsetting inflation. For many recipients, that kind of increase isn't luxury, it's survival. A $2,000 stimulus-style payment, on the other hand, would likely be one-time relief, designed to help with immediate pressure, overdue bills, medical expenses, rent gaps, or emergency costs that monthly checks simply can't cover. Now here's the key point most people miss. These two ideas serve different purposes. One is structural support. The other is emergency relief. That's why people are asking whether they could coexist. Historically, when stimulus payments were issued, Social Security and SSDI recipients did receive them. SSI recipients faced delays, but many were eventually included. That history matters because it shows precedent. But precedent doesn't equal promise. It equals possibility. And that possibility is why this conversation is exploding. Because if policymakers decide relief is necessary again, excluding millions of fixed-income Americans would be politically dangerous and morally questionable. Which brings us to the big suspenseful question. Can you actually get both at the same time? Here's the honest answer, and it's critical you hear it clearly. There is no automatic rule that says Americans cannot receive both a benefit increase and a stimulus-style payment. They are funded, structured, and justified differently. One adjusts ongoing support, the other responds to economic strain. So technically, yes, it is possible, but politically and practically, that's where the battle is. Lawmakers must decide what they can afford, what they're willing to defend, and what voters will support. A benefit increase requires long-term funding planning. A stimulus check requires short-term approval, but massive public justification. Doing both would be bold, expensive, and extremely popular with millions of Americans who feel ignored. That's why it's being debated, not promised. And here's the suspense. These decisions are often made quickly once pressure peaks. What feels impossible one month becomes urgent the next. So, while no one should budget based on rumors, ignoring the conversation entirely would be a mistake. Because the louder Americans speak, the more likely action becomes. Why this moment feels different from before. This doesn't feel like past years, and Americans can feel it. Debt is higher, savings are lower, emergency cushions are gone, seniors are going back to work, disabled Americans are rationing care, families are helping parents who were supposed to be stable. This pressure is visible, and policymakers know it. That's why language around targeted relief, benefit adequacy, and fixed income vulnerability is becoming more common. These aren't random words, they're signals. Signals that something may have to give, and when systems bend, relief often follows. What you should and should not believe online right now. Misinformation spreads fast, because hope spreads faster than facts. You should not believe anyone promising guaranteed dates, automatic checks, or confirmed approvals unless it comes from official government sources. But you should pay attention to debates, proposals, and voting behavior, because those shape outcomes. Stay informed, not emotional, hopeful, not reckless. How this could impact your monthly budget. If either of these ideas moves forward, the impact would be real. An increase helps every month. A stimulus helps immediately. Together, they could reset stability for many households. That's why people are watching so closely. Why your voice actually matters here. Public pressure works, calls work, voting works, engagement works. Silence is the only thing that guarantees nothing changes. What to watch next, very carefully. Watch legislative language, watch budget negotiations, watch election platforms. These moments move fast once momentum builds. Why fixed income Americans feel trapped right now. Let's be real for a moment, because this part hits deep for millions of Americans. If you're on Social Security, SSDI, or SSI, your income isn't flexible. You don't get to negotiate a raise. You don't get overtime. You don't get bonuses. Every single month you're handed a number, and you're expected to make your entire life fit inside it. And right now, that number feels smaller than ever. Housing costs didn't wait for your benefit to catch up. Food prices didn't pause out of respect for fixed income. Insurance premiums didn't slow down because you're retired or disabled. Everything moved forward, while your check lagged behind. That's why talk of a $200 increase and a $2,000 stimulus check doesn't feel like greed to Americans on fixed income. It feels like fairness. It feels like acknowledgement. It feels like someone finally noticed that the math stopped working a long time ago. Many seniors are skipping doctor visits. Many SSDI recipients are choosing between medication and utilities. SSI households are surviving in a permanent state of emergency, where one unexpected expense can cause total collapse. And here's the emotional truth no spreadsheet can capture. Living in constant financial stress changes people. It creates anxiety. It steals sleep. It makes every decision heavier than it should be. That's why these conversations matter so much. Because they aren't just about money. They're about dignity. About whether Americans who worked, contributed, or live with disabilities deserve stability instead of survival mode. And once dignity becomes part of the conversation, the pressure on policymakers multiplies. The political reality. Why this is even being discussed now, let's talk politics. Not ideology, not parties, but reality. Elected officials respond to pressure. And right now, the pressure is loud, visible, and impossible to ignore. Older Americans vote. Disabled Americans organize. Caregivers speak up. Families feel the squeeze. And every time affordability becomes a national issue, Social Security and stimulus enter the spotlight together. Why? Because they reach millions fast. A benefit increase shows long-term responsibility. A stimulus check shows immediate action. And in moments where Americans feel overwhelmed, leaders often lean toward visible relief. That's why you're hearing overlapping language. That's why these ideas are floating around the same space. Not because decisions are final, but because the problem is undeniable. And here's something many people forget. Discussions often start exaggerated before they settle into compromise. Big numbers grab attention. Negotiations reduce them. But nothing starts small in politics. So when you hear $200 and $2,000 together, don't assume it's fake. Understand that it's the opening frame of a larger debate, and debates shape outcomes. What history tells us about impossible payments? If you had told Americans years ago that multiple stimulus checks would go out nationwide, many would have laughed. If you had said Social Security COLAs would jump significantly, people would have doubted it. But history matters, because it shows patterns. When pressure builds fast enough, relief follows. Not perfectly, not evenly, but meaningfully. Stimulus checks happened because the alternative was collapse. Benefit increases happened because ignoring inflation became politically toxic. That doesn't guarantee anything today, but it does remind us of something important. Systems move when people push, and Americans are pushing again. What you can do right now to stay ahead. Here's where this gets practical. You don't need to panic. You don't need to budget imaginary money, but you do need to stay informed. Follow credible updates, watch official statements, track legislation, not rumors. And most importantly, don't emotionally disengage just because nothing is approved yet. The worst thing Americans can do in moments like this is tune out. Momentum dies in silence. This conversation isn't ending, it's building. A $200 increase, a $2,000 stimulus check. Two ideas born from the same truth. Millions of Americans are falling behind through no fault of their own. Whether both happen, one happens, or something in between, what matters is that the pressure is real, the discussion is active, and the outcome will affect your future. Stay alert, stay informed, stay connected. Because when decisions are finally made, they won't ask if you were paying attention, and your wallet will feel the result either way.